I know you're out there. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
The KrisAnne Hall Show.
Any varmint that crosses that lady's path has met its match.
Rise and shine, liberty-loving patriots. Welcome to the KrisAnne Hall Show. KrisAnne Hall here, KrisAnnehall.com. Liberty over security, principle over party, and truth over your favorite personality. I feel the need. Let me just be totally honest with you. I feel the need coming on for a media fast. Those of you who are longtime listeners to the KrisAnne Hall Show, you know that I often advocate for a media fast, a simple reset button to the constant barrage of ridiculousness in the media. I think that those of us who are constantly watching the news, constantly searching through the media, constantly reading internet articles, and constantly on Facebook doing things to support liberty, bringing news to light. I mean, something that keeps you in social media constantly that's not, sort of, well, I don't know, I guess maybe just period. Something that keeps you in social media continually, something that keeps you moving in the media constant barrage. I think that it is absolutely essential and vital to your health to take a fast of that every now and again. My husband is taking a Facebook fast at the moment. He does this periodically. And because this is my life, right, every single day, I wake up and the first thing that I do is I read the news. Monday through Friday, everything that I do is all about the news. Saturdays are my workshops and Sundays is church. So basically I have one day a week, and I don't even really have that because on Sundays I have the radio show with Genesis Communications Network. Every day, Monday through Friday, the first thing I do is I roll out of bed and I come and do the radio show. Good news for you, you don't get to see me do the radio show because I am usually just literally rolling out of bed. Just kidding. Anyway, I feel the need for a media fast when I can feel the internal pressures and frustrations building. It's time to sort of breathe, step back, and breathe. I have actually a media fast scheduled for the end of August. I just don't know if I'm going to make it that far before I actually have to do something about this. And I think what I find most frustrating is not, those crazy liberal Democrats. Can I just mention to you that I am not frustrated by the crazy liberal Democrats? Not frustrated. No. Why would I be frustrated by people who are living according to their words and living according to their principles? I know who they are. I expect what we get from them. And that's not frustrating. My only job with them is to just simply present them with the truth and hope to reach some of them and plant a seed. I'll remind you that I am a recovering liberal. So I know at least from a personal perspective, what works and what doesn't work. I walked the walk. I was a global warming enthusiast. I was a big government believer. And as you can probably imagine, I haven't just become a passionate person. I have been this way my whole life, passionate about doing the right thing and standing up for what is right and standing up for what I believe in. And back then, I believed a lot of things that just weren't so. Why? Because I was trapped in the system. Trapped in the system where I had the cult of expert affliction. This is what the professors say, and this is what the experts say. Never really once looking beyond what was fed to me. It wasn't until I actually stepped outside of the fed information that I actually became aware that there is a truth out there. That there is absolute things that we can know and some things that we can't. Understanding that taxes are not about fairness. That was probably one of my most shocking discoveries. Taxes are not about fairness. That's what I was raised to believe. It's our duty to take care of people. It is our duty to take care of the widows and the orphans and the old people. It's our duty to take care of the mentally challenged and the physically disabled. I will agree still with that perspective, but as an individual, not as a government. I believe we have a simple moral obligation to help people. It's biblical. But you see, it's not for government. And the thing that woke me up was this continual barrage of education and, this whole taxes is fair share thing. And then actually getting out in the world. I think that was a big deal. I had a professor once that said, if you want to avoid reality, go to college. If you want to avoid reality for a little bit longer, get a PhD. But if you want to avoid reality forever, he said, become a professor. See, I think that it would do our higher educational institutions a great deal of good if their professors all had to join the normal workforce periodically. I think that every professor should have term limits, temporary term limits. So that you are a professor for 5 years, that's your term limit. You must leave the university and get a real job. No. I don't mean becoming an author and still being, steeped in your own ignorance. I mean, you got to go work at Walmart. You got to change tires. You got to make food. You got to wait tables. You got to have a real job where you have to account to someone every day, 9 to 5, as it were, or the late shift from 12 to 7 or something. You have to have a real job for a year before you can go back into the educational system. I think that would do a great deal of good for our society and get these mental midgets who think that they are just the most intelligent on the planet some real life experience. Yeah, I'm a bit hostile. Yeah, I'm a bit hostile at our educational system. I mean, I am the victim of their brainwashing. I am a recovering victim of their abuse. And it is abuse. I think it's psychological abuse. The way that they treat our students, our young people, and bring them up in this brainwashing and teach them things that simply are not true, and teach them with such passion and such force that our kids really, unless they have a good firm foundation growing up, they cannot deal with that kind of psychological manipulation. And so I'm feeling this need for a media fast, not because of the liberal Democrats. They are who they are because that's what they know. It is the conservatives, those who self-classify as conservatives, those who self-classify as people who believe in the Constitution. Those people make my head want to explode sometimes. Now I realize there are those who actually get liberty, who understand it, who know the facts. But there are so many, unfortunately, it feels like, and this is why I need a media fast, right? Because it just feels overwhelming. It feels like there's so many more that claim to be members of our movement of Constitution and liberty who simply just don't get it. And these are the people that frustrate me. These are the people who refuse, who claim to be members of the possessors of truth, and yet still deny it openly, fervently, vehemently, passionately. And then I don't understand. I understand why Democrats are on the floor filibustering for gun control. I understand why they do that. But I don't understand why Republicans who claim to be the party of the Constitution would join them. I can't wrap my brain around it.
KrisAnne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
No, it should not shock us when Elizabeth Warren takes the House floor and says things like this.
Through all of the shouting, we miss what should be obvious. It was a terrorist with a gun that killed all those people.
We all know Elizabeth Warren's words are wrong. Guns don't kill people. Crazy, violent people kill people. It was not a gun that killed those people. That gun can't walk into a bar and shoot up people. It took an actor. It took a violent person to kill people. And let's just be clear about something. It was not the gun that killed all those people. It wasn't even the gunman that killed all those people. If we want to be totally honest, we must admit that those people died because they could not defend themselves. Their natural right to self-preservation had been taken from them. Those people died because they were disarmed. I have talked to dozens of gun experts since this happened. And every single one of them has said that if someone in that crowd had just been marginally trained and was possessing a gun, that would not have happened like that. That maybe a few people would have died, but certainly not in those numbers. But again, I will suggest to you that if that man had not picked a segment of our society that he knew had been culturally disarmed, this would have been a completely different story. See, I think that it was purposely targeted that way because he knew that this segment of our society is culturally disarmed. Culturally. Liberal, Democrats, homosexual, completely and totally brainwashed out of their right to self-preservation. And when you are brainwashed out of your right to self-preservation, guess what? You are a slave. You're a slave. Because if you have to ask permission to protect yourself, if you have to wait for the government to show up to make you safe, you are not safe. You are living a lie. You are living under delusion. And it was our government that killed those people. Through their errant educational systems, through their continual barrage of brainwashing, through the statements of people like Elizabeth Warren and the Democrats who engaged in this filibuster that talked about guns killing people. Guns don't kill people. I suppose then water drowns people. Fire burns people. Isn't that what Jefferson tried to warn us about? Jefferson, in his writing of common, what was that called again? Literary commonplace, uses real common sense and says that there are people who would sacrifice 1,000 real advantages to the fear of an imaginary or trifling inconvenience, who would deprive men the use of fire for fear of being burnt and of water for fear of being drowned. He's talking about gun control. He's saying you are inventing a threat from guns when the real problem is evil. The real problem is the evil in the hearts of men. It is not the guns. In that case, why don't we ban television because there's bad shows? Why don't we ban education or ban books because there are bad books? There are books that teach lies. I'm sure there's plenty of liberal Democrats who would want to ban my books. Why? Because there are bad things that happen out there. We got to ban things and ignore all the good things? That would certainly not be a liberal Democrat's argument about most things. But here we are, operating out of fear, irrationality, and miseducation.
So don't let them steal your life. Don't let them break your stride. There is light on the other side. You'll see all the raindrops falling. So revolution.
The KrisAnne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
No, it shouldn't surprise us. It should not shock us. It should not even alarm us when the liberal Democrats shout their errant rhetoric about guns and, well, let's just say government control in general, because that's their solution to everything, is government control. I mean, that's who they are. Maybe it should alarm us, but, you know, we know what they believe, and that's what they believe. However, it should deeply disturb us when members of the Republican Party jump into the rhetoric and jump into the mix and start shouting for government to do things and starts joining in the perpetration of a government that is doing things that it's not allowed to do. I suggest to you that it should even make us angry and feel betrayed when people like Pat Toomey, Republican from Pennsylvania, jumps on board with the filibuster for gun control. This is what he has to say.
There's an obvious opportunity here, guys, to work together and find a solution.
First off, Mr. Toomey, you are not allowed to engage in the common sense discussion about this because our Constitution makes it very clear that this is a shall not be infringed kind of thing. You're not allowed to have this discussion. You are absolutely and completely forbidden. Now, for the Democrats to not know that is perfectly understandable. For Pat Toomey, who is a Republican, and he didn't just wake up yesterday as a Republican. He's been a Republican. This is something he ought to know. This is part of his party platform. The very first lines of Section 3 of the GOP platform. We are the party of the Constitution, the solemn compact which confirms our God-given individual rights and assures that all Americans stand equal before the law. Did you catch that? That is the GOP party platform. We are the party of the Constitution, the solemn compact which confirms our God-given individual rights and assures that all Americans stand equal before the law. Republicans ought not be having this gun control debate in federal government. They ought not be having this conversation if they are actually the party of the Constitution and they understand that it's a compact that confirms our God-given individual rights, because the right to keep and bear arms, the right to self-preservation, is a God-given right. Which means the Republicans, of all people, ought to know that it's not something that can be limited or something that can be denied by government, especially the federal government. Most distinctly, the federal government. If there is going to be gun control, it has to be, and its only source can be at the state level. And at the state level, gun control ought to be limited to those who have used guns to deprive people of their life, liberty, or property. You use a gun to deprive someone of life, liberty, or property, and there you go. You no longer have that liberty. It's gone. You're done. Because you abused your liberty. So, the federal government, in writing, black and white, is absolutely forbidden from even having this discussion. Patrick Henry said that we needed to mark these people who approach the jewel of liberty as suspect. Just for approaching the jewel of liberty, they must be marked as suspect. And this day forward, we must mark Pat Toomey as suspect. Now, Pat Toomey has already been marked as suspect in my book for his support of gun control. Pat Toomey has been on this gun control type of platform before. In 2013, Barack Obama was praising Pat Toomey along with Joe Manchin as the leaders in the Republican Party for gun control. Pat Toomey also stood against Rand Paul's repeal of the indefinite detention clause in NDAA, along with a whole list of Republicans who obviously do not understand that due process is a part of the Constitution to which they claim to be a party of. But for a Republican to take a stand for gun control, let's go ahead and read
not
through this first paragraph of the GOP party platform, Section 3. It says, "We are the party of the Constitution, the solemn compact which confirms our God-given individual rights and assures that all Americans stand equal before the law. Perhaps the greatest political document ever written. It defines the purposes and limits of government and is the blueprint for ordered liberty that makes the U.S. the world's freest, most stable, and most prosperous nation. Its constitutional ideals have been emulated around the world, and with them has come unprecedented prosperity for billions of people." I think it's funny because most Republicans don't know what the platform says, even those in the party themselves, and certainly not those in the establishment. I think I want to go down and read this section in here that's called Federalism and the 10th Amendment, because, I am openly criticized by many Republicans for my stand on states' rights, and you will be hard-pressed to find an establishment Republican who actually believes in the state's right and duty to nullify federal law when it's unconstitutional. But here's right out of the GOP party platform. Quote, "We support the review and examination of all federal agencies to eliminate wasteful spending, operational inefficiencies, or abuse of power to determine whether they are performing functions that are better performed by the states. These functions, as appropriate, should be returned to the states in accordance with the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution." Wow. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? I think that is a very powerful statement. It's not completely and totally accurate, but it is a very powerful statement. It's not up to the federal government to review what power belongs to the states and what power belongs to the federal government. No, it's the states themselves that should be demanding and securing the powers that have been reserved to them. But nonetheless, if you read this to a Republican in office right now, I mean, didn't tell them where it came from, just read it to them, what exactly would they be able to tell you where this came from? They would say, "Oh, that's one of those constitutional purists. That's one of those constitutional extremists. That's one of those Tea Party groups." No, I'm sorry. That's the GOP platform, and it has been that way since at least 2012. There's more in there. But you see, we must mark suspect, Patrick Henry says, those people that approach the jewel of our liberty. And how many Republicans are going to jump on board now with this gun control because they are afraid of a political backlash? Because it's an emotional topic now, and we can't be the party that stands in the way of making people safe. Really? So you can't do the right thing and oppose mob hysteria. See, that makes me radical, right? The fact that I want the federal government to do nothing at all about this situation. Nothing at all. This is not a federal issue in any way, shape, or form. The shooting did not happen in Washington, D.C. It did not happen even on land that was claimed to be federal land. It did not happen with an illegal immigrant. It did not even happen with an immigrant. It was not a crime against foreign ambassadors. It wasn't a crime against U.S. ambassadors. It wasn't a crime against any federal politician anywhere. There is absolutely no ground in this case whatsoever for the federal government to be involved with this. This is a Florida issue, period. It doesn't even extend beyond the borders of Florida. This is a state of Florida issue. It is not a federal government issue. And we need to realize that the federal government is doing things it's not supposed to do. And when the federal government transgresses its boundaries, especially when it does it with our opinion, with our permission, then guess what? There is absolutely no limit to the federal government whatsoever. Letter from a federal farmer, number 18, says, whereas to preserve liberty, it's essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms and be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them. Nor does it follow from this that all must go into actual service on every occasion. The mind that aims at a select militia must be influenced by a truly anti-Republican principle.
Hate me if you want, or love me if you can. If the truth is what you want, then you found your man. I ain't backing down, I ain't backing up. If you think like I think, then crack it on up. I won't back up, I don't back down. I've been raised up to stand my ground. Take my job, but not my guns. Tax my check till I ain't got none, except for the good Lord up above. I answered it no.
The KrisAnne Hall Show. She's Liberty's lobbyist.
I think I want to start off this final section with the full quote that I was giving you before. This is from the Letters from a Federal Farmer to the Republican, number 18. And this particular section says, whereas to preserve liberty, it is essential that the whole body of the people always possess arms and be taught alike, especially when young, how to use them. Nor does it follow from this that all must go into actual service on every occasion. The mind that aims at a select militia must be influenced by a truly anti-Republican principle. And when we see many men disposed to practice upon it, whenever they can prevail, no wonder true Republicans are for carefully guarding against it. Now, Richard Henry Lee is not talking about the Republican Party here. He is talking about people who understand that it's the republic style of government that preserves liberty, the only style of government that preserves liberty. And he's saying, look, if you have people who are trying to disarm the public, the whole body of the people are trying to be disarmed, then they are not liberty lovers. And they should not be calling them republic. They should not be calling them Republicans. Mark them as imposters and traitors to liberty, leaving you defenseless. So keep your eyes and ears open. There is no room for the federal government in this. And any federal agent, whether it be appointed or elected, House, Senate, Judiciary, Executive, any of them should be marked as suspect for first involving the federal government in this issue, and for second claiming the federal government can have anything to say about your right to keep and bear arms. So this is a frustrating thing for me. The other frustrating thing for me is that we have great, great patriots who understand that gun control is not the purview of the federal government, but fail to recognize that religion control is even more dangerous than gun control. I have been posting on my Facebook page for several days now the dangers. I did the show yesterday, the dangers of allowing the federal government to outlaw Islam, to create a moratorium on Muslims in this country, to base immigration on a matter of religion. And I have had people who claim to be long-time listeners, loyal constitutionalists, who tell me I am wrong, that this is necessary, that Islam is not a religion, it's an ideology. Oh, great. So now we want the government to outlaw ideologies. Is that what we want? This is a matter of free speech. If you cannot believe what your conscience dictates to you to believe, then you are not free. You are a slave. I'm not giving you carte blanche to go around and kill people. If you're going to kill people, you have to be punished. But there is no such thing as crime prevention. You cannot stop people from committing crimes. And if we aren't beyond that level of ignorance, there is no hope for America. If we haven't figured out that laws don't stop crimes, my goodness, this shooting would not have happened in Orlando if someone followed the law. There's no way for him to get a gun into that club where they served alcohol in the state of Florida because it's against the law. Oh, wait, it's against the law to shoot people. When has that stopped somebody? We had better wake up, because this is a very serious, serious issue of our liberty, and our liberty is under grave assault. God bless you.